We call it the Church Answers Podcast. That's not presumptuous, ostentatious, or braggadocious. It's just the name of our company is Church Answers. And we thought when we created a new podcast, in addition to the one that we have called Rainer on Leadership, which is our long-standing, well over a decade-old podcast, that we would come up with some original name like the Church Answers Podcast. Isn't that original? I know you absolutely love it. My youngest son, Jess, who is my pastor in the Nashville area, when he was naming his church, it was the churches in Spring Hill. He said, I'm going to come up with something original. We got a church in Spring Hill. I'm going to call it the Church at Spring Hill. The Rainer creativity astounds the world. The Church Answers Podcast, the Church at Spring Hill. Well, this is the Church Answers Podcast, always sponsored by Belay, our inaugural sponsor. Belay can do so many things for you folks. They can take a lot of the administrative tasks as an executive assistant comes alongside you and says, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. And as a result, you're free to do those things that give you energy instead of drain you. Or maybe you bring someone as a bookkeeper and there's a layperson who is struggling to try to do the bookkeeping, and you bring this person on, they do it for your church. They've got so many people with so many possibilities to help you, and they can help you in your personal life. They can help you in your professional life. You don't have to worry about reading every single email, scheduling every call, responding to every request. Get someone else to come alongside you. Hey, don't forget, I've been mentioning this every episode and probably will for a few more. Get the download, get the book, Delegate to Elevate. You need it. You need to read it. It is not just about reading more information. It is about helping you to become more productive in your ministry for the glory of God. You got it? So go to belaysolutions.com/Tom Rainer, Thom Rainer, or we have a link in our show notes if you happen to be looking at it. And just click on that link as well. Welcome to all of you who are listening on your favorite podcasting app. Welcome to all of you who are watching us by YouTube. Here's the question for this particular brief episode. The question is this: should someone who is not a church member lead a ministry in the church? You know where this question came from? Well, you don't. So that's kind of rhetorical. And if you did, you cannot answer me because I can talk, but I cannot hear on this side of the camera and the microphone. But this question came up at Church Answers Central. Church Answers Central is our place where we answer questions 24/7. It's absolutely incredible. We have, in the course of a week, we have a couple of thousand church leaders interacting. They can ask anything at any time. They'll get help from the community, but they'll get help from subject matter experts. I probably answer 20 to 30 questions myself every single week. That's my guesstimate. And many of our other subject matter experts do, but the community does. Well, this question came up. This question, which is the title of this podcast, came up, and it created a lot of energetic interaction. Now, I love the interaction at Church Answers Central, where this type of question comes up. I love the interaction of our membership community because it's always gracious. It's never snarky. It's rarely snarky, and we deal with snarkiness, and we've only had to do so 2 or 3 times in its entire history. People want to help one another. They don't want to be like on social media and see what we can criticize lately. And so they try to help one another. So I don't remember which pastor or staff person asked this question, but the question was simply the title of our podcast: should someone who is not a ministry lead a ministry in the church? I'm going to give you the consensus that emerged from this, which I have agreement, and give credit where credit is due. This is where the Church Answers community came to this conclusion. The first answer that they had was, it depends. I love that. Maybe you don't know anything about the it depends history. It goes way back to our other podcast, Rainer on Leadership, way back before Sam was co-host with me. My son, Sam Rainer, Jonathan Howell, we often called him the voice. And he would ask me questions. He would think he was tossing softballs to me, but every now and then he'd throw a curve at me, to use the baseball metaphor. And I would listen carefully, and then I'd look up and say, Jonathan, it depends. And that became kind of our calling card. Well, it depends. It doesn't always have a clear, unequivocal answer. And so on this one, it depends. Now, I will say this. By the time it was said and done, most people in this forum said someone who is not a church member should not lead a ministry, regardless of the ministry. But we started off with it depends, and the it depends upon the ministry. But I do want to go on. Let me go on and get that other point out just before you have any questions about this. We did conclude that leading a ministry should not be the purview of someone who is not a member of a church. They have not committed themselves to the membership of the church. They have not said that I identify with the body of church, the body which is the church. They have not made a commitment to the church. So it is probably not the best thing to have them lead a ministry, and probably not the best thing to have them lead a ministry of any kind. If they are not willing to commit to the church, why should they have a leadership position in a ministry? Okay? It sends the wrong message. And it sends not only the wrong message to that person that, hey, it's okay that you haven't committed to the church, but it sends a wrong message to the rest of the church that membership really is unimportant in this church. There's no commitment necessary. So lead is a word that we came away saying, no, we don't think a non-member should lead a ministry in a church. Now, let's get to the next part of the question. Should they be involved in a ministry in a church if they're not a member? That's where we came back with it depends. You don't want a non-member to be an elder of your church. I know that sounds facetious, but sometimes I wonder if we go in that direction at least part way. You don't want a non-member to run the finances of your church. I mean, there's certain things that you just know are meant for those who have committed to the church. And why would you make a ministry leadership person or a position give to someone who is not committed to membership? So it depends on the ministry. So this is where the depends actually comes in. The depends is the ministry. Now, I want to tell you one type of ministry where I would say unequivocally yes. If someone wants to be a part of a welcome ministry, hospitality ministry, greeter ministry at a church, I would have them do that anytime. It helps them to learn about the church. It helps them to learn about the people coming in, and hopefully it moves them toward a higher commitment. If you're taking a mission trip, let's say it's an overseas mission trip, and it's a ministry of the church. Should a non-member come along? I think so. Most of the time, I think so. So there are places where a non-member should be allowed to be involved. Now, I will say this. I have a high view of church membership. I wrote a little book called I Am a Church Member. I wrote a book about the second step in discipleship called I Am a Christian. And so I have a high view of church membership, and I don't want to do anything that diminishes that high view. And so we have to be very careful when we open the door for people to be involved in ministry. We have to make certain that it's really leading them toward a greater commitment instead of sending a message that they do not have to be committed through membership. That was the conclusion that we came to after many, many great comments at Church Answer Central. That is where we walked away and said, not lead, maybe be involved, and where you're involved, it depends. And we've given you some examples. But when you get someone involved who is not a member, you should have the implicit goal to move them toward a greater commitment that will hopefully, prayerfully, cause them to be a member, commit to be a member very soon. Once again, always thank you for listening to the Church Answers podcast. It has been my delight to get to this episode number 14. Again, I've said in previous episodes, I'm not going to be counting them all for you, but I am here. And I love these episodes, 10 to 12 minutes every time. I love it because Belay is making this free to you. They are providing the sponsorship. Belay Solutions, get their download, Delegate to Elevate. Incredible book. Go to the show notes and click onto that. Or you can just go to belaysolutions.com/Tom Rainer, ThomRainer. Thank you, Belay. Thank you, listeners. Thank you, viewers. If you're at YouTube, give us a like, review, subscribe to us, particularly if you're at YouTube, and get the word out because we want to help more people. We want to help more churches for the glory of God and for the kingdom. See you later. Hey, folks, this is a PS to our podcast. We got some exciting stuff that we want to offer you absolutely for free. Sam, when you think about predictive factors in a church's growth, if you take out demographics, what are some things that come to mind? Just two. I mean, don't give me a list of 10. Just two or three things that come to mind on predictive growth of a church.
Well, evangelism and whether the church is doing it or not.
Bingo.
And then I will add, is it an ongoing evangelism emphasis?
Double bingo. Well? Maybe something about leadership and their commitment to that. So all of the above.
Evangelistic churches have evangelistic pastors. Is the staff, is the lead pastor doing the work themselves?
We have a free download for you, and it's actually a sheet that you can self-score. You answer 20 questions, anywhere from strongly disagree to strongly agree. And we come back and we predict what your growth rate is going to be for the next year in worship attendance. It's not a perfect tool, but it's a good tool. There's a link to that for the attendance predictor. Look in the show notes. You'll absolutely love it. That's cool. We'll see you soon.